So guys, we'll just keep talking. I'll keep an eye on the clock. Right at 10 o'clock, I'll say good morning to everybody and we'll roll. But he's probably going to hit the live button if he hasn't already. And, there might be some people watching, which is fine. So did you guys have a good Christmas?
Awesome.
Certainly did.
Well, good. And Mark, you've got little ones, so
yes,
I guess
I've got 3 little ones, and they were excited.
Good. So Santa Claus, the COVID didn't keep Santa from delivering the toys to the kids, right?
Nope. All the deliveries came in on time.
All right. I know some people were a little nervous about old Saint Nick, making his rounds. He probably had a mask on, I guess. That
would have been a rule. He'd have to wear a mask and his gloves, right? So
that's right. And hand sanitizer before he goes down the next chimney, right?
Yes.
So, what about you, Candy? Did you have a good
We were
Christmas?
real quiet. We didn't have any little kids around. It was kind of a bummer that way, but it was laid back and we were healthy.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I actually was in Dallas and then flying back. So it was a very unusual Christmas for me as well, but staying safe and being careful. And that's the name of the game right now. Hopefully these vaccines are going to kind of get around and make people feel better. And maybe 2021 is going to bring us a little bit of normalcy. Whatever normalcy is these days.
Brian, does this mean you're safe, that you can't get it? Are you worried about getting it again?
Who knows? I mean, early on, I've got antibodies, and they wanted, I went and donated plasma, and that apparently does help folks. So I'm glad I was happy that I was able to, maybe help somebody. But I don't know. I've heard, that you're immune, and then I've heard that, well, you're somewhat immune. And then I've heard, nope, you can get it again. So I'm acting as though I could get it again. Okay. I'm masking up when I go, we took our team to dinner last night, some of us, and we wore masks when we went in and then took them off when we sat down to eat. But yeah, I do what everybody else is doing to try and be safe and just be respectful to, other folks in the community, especially if I'm going in someone's house. We put a mask on, and I don't just walk in and say I'm immune and you're safe. But I hope I am, Candy. I don't know. Well, listen, it's 10 o'clock. It's time to get started. We've got several people watching, and although we can't see who's watching on this because Ben won't let us see. Hi, everybody. I know there is 100 or so of you watching live, and we're glad that you're here. We took a little break last month in November. We didn't have a webinar, and I'll just say I apologize for that. A lot's been going on, as you can imagine, but we're back. So we're here today, and should have one in January. In fact, I think we're going to have a special edition webinar next week, and we'll touch more on that a little later. We just got some breaking news out Monday from FHFA, and they're talking about hybrids again. They're talking about appraisal waivers again. They're talking about a bunch of stuff. So we're probably going to come back with a panel of folks next week and talk about some of that fun stuff. But for today, I'm excited that my guest agreed to be here on just such a really a last minute. Hey, can you be on the show? And that happens for you guys viewing. That's kind of what we do. Good morning. I'm Bryan Reynolds. You're watching the Appraisal Report webinar brought to you by the fine folks of Appraiser eLearning. We're glad you're here. I'm glad my guests are here. I hope you're staying busy. I hope you're staying safe. We've got a lot to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. I do want to remind you as a viewer, you're watching this via YouTube, and this is being recorded. So if you can't watch this broadcast in its entirety, you can go back to YouTube at any time and pick up where you left off, right? It's kind of like hitting the pause button. And what we'd like for you to do is go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It's probably below me or beside me or up above somewhere in this viewing area. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and then you stay in the know. I just mentioned that we may have a special edition webinar next week. Well, if you hit the subscribe button, you'll know about that. So go ahead and take a second and hit the subscribe button. Okay, your second's up. So I am super happy that we've got a couple of very fine people with us today. I've got Candy Cooke down in Texas, and I've got Mark Gentry just right around the corner from me right now. I could probably throw a rock and hit him. So Candy she is a real estate agent. She is an appraiser. She is going to walk away for a minute. And Mark Gentry is our lender here today. He is branch manager and vice president over at Ruoff. Mark, welcome. Tell everybody who you are and what it is you do, my friend.
Well, appreciate it, Brian. Thank you for inviting me to join today. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit nervous just because it's not something I've done in the past, but I look forward to participating with you today. But I am the vice president branch manager for Ruoff Mortgage in Owensboro, Kentucky. I am managing over 12 loan officers here at this particular branch. We've been in Owensboro a couple of years now. Ruoff Mortgage is the #1 retail purchase lender, non-bank in the Midwest. Started in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and has kind of just branched out now into Kentucky. Specifically Owensboro, Louisville, and Bowling Green. But really, that's my background. I've been doing this in banking about 15 years. And then, of course, my pride and joy is my 3 little ones at home. So I do it for them.
That's great. That's great. Well, again, Mark, thanks for being here. And boy, I did catch him off guard. Was it yesterday I roped you into this, or was it?
Yeah, I think it was maybe yesterday morning. Yeah, but that's okay.
And you know, my audience knows that about me. You know, Julie Jones said that one day. He called me. I was out back cutting trees down and said, "Hey, hop on just for a quick podcast." You know, and I do that all the time. So you never know. When I call, I might need you to spring into action. And my good friend, Miss Candy Cooke down in Texas. You walked away. I introed you and poof, she's gone. So she's back.
Yeah, my dog was going crazy. So I had to.
Oh, okay. Well, we appreciate that. So Candy, tell everyone who you are, what you do, and you've got a big audience, a social media audience. Go ahead and tell everybody about that, because we've got realtors watching today. They might be interested in your little group, a big group. It's not little.
I'm a broker and a certified general appraiser. I have a crazy Facebook group that I thought would have, 400 or 500 people. We're at 12,000 right now. It's Cooke Real Estate. It's COOKE' Real Estate. Can't rant, can't be ugly, can't complain about the appraisers. Appraisers can't complain about the agents or the brokers, but we're out there trying to give as much information as possible. And I think some of the people watching today are from my group, because we've been pushing it in there also.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, welcome, Cooke Group. It was funny. I was down in Texas, and I told you guys a moment ago, I might grab you at any time and say, "Hey, well, I did that to Candy." We were, where were we? I don't know. I don't even remember.
I don't even remember where we were, but
yeah. Maybe in New Braunfels or somewhere. And she was speaking at an ATA event, and I was there scheduled, I think, to speak the next day.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. And so she was on a break, and I said, "Hey, can I grab you after this?" She's like, "Well, I'm a little busy right now." I said, "I get it." And so anyway, she was gracious enough to hang out afterwards while everyone else was having cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. Candy and I found a little corner and did a little broadcast. So that was fun. And thank you for doing that, Candy. Well, again, I'm super glad that you guys are here. And I do want to remind our viewers that this is a live broadcast, and we want you to participate. So if you have any questions or comments, you've got your little chat thing you've got probably blowing up already. We can't see any of that. But if you have a specific question for any of the guests here today or myself, feel free to send a question. Ben Maxwell will grab those up and send those over to us, and we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can during this broadcast. So we want you to be involved. Feel free to ask any questions, and we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can. So let's just dive right in, guys. Mark, I'm going to start with you. So how has in March, I think, is when this COVID thing really started hitting the U.S. kind of hard. And I was, I got it. Most folks know that by now, but I got it in March, like the second week of March, and it knocked me off my feet. I think we initially had a little, screeching halt as far as business was concerned, probably in March. But how's the rest of the year been?
Well, as you know, I know you know, but the audience may know, but I also had it in March. And so, I luckily did not maybe have it as maybe you did, but still some symptoms that did kick my butt to some degree.
Yeah, he thinks I gave it to him.
I didn't say that. But we did cross paths. I could have given it to you. I don't know. So, yeah.
Anyway,
but,
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But yes, March kind of slowed down a tick, because nobody really knew what to do. But right. Going to April, May, June, July, just awesome. We can't complain as lenders. I tell my people, in the office here, if you can't walk down the street and run into a refinance, then I don't know what you're looking for. Because, most of the business, I would say most of the business, but I'd say, it's been a pretty even 50-50 or 60-40 this year. So it's been something unexpected, because when we were making business plans this time last year, because it's not 2021 yet in a couple of days, but, we were not anticipating a refi boom. We were going out there, and like I initiated in my intro, that we're new to the Owensboro market. Ruoff is. So this is really just 2.5 years building our brand, building our loan officers. Because we all came from different backgrounds in lending, of course, but some came from banks like myself. So we had to kind of get out there and build more relationship with the realtors. So purchases is our game plan. That was it, and it still is for 2021. But there's still, I think, a bunch of refinances that people haven't even taken advantage of.
What are the rates right now? And you don't have to be.
No, well, I sat down with a gentleman just yesterday, and we were looking at 30-year 15. He's an older gentleman. He's trying to decide if he wants to have a lower payment or go ahead and pay it off as quickly as he can. But I was able to get him a 15 anywhere from 2.1, 2.2, 2.2. Now of course, he's got 50% LTV, 770 credit score. You got, certain things that you got to check certain boxes to get, certain rates. But, and then a 30-year, I think, was 2.6, something like that.
Isn't that crazy? That is just, I tell people, especially young people, when I got in this business, and I actually started in the mortgage business as well, Mark, before I got, over into appraising. And before I did that, the rates were like at 19%. I moved to Chicago in 1986, and the rates, we had a big refi wave. The rates started going down to 12, 11, 10. They bottomed out at about 10%. And people were going crazy. You could get maybe an adjustable rate or a buy down or something like that at 9. But back then times were tough. The builders had a hard time. You'd be showing somebody a house and open the garage up, and there's a car sitting in there, and the buyer's like, "Oh, but this one must already be sold. There's a car in the garage." No. You don't understand. You buy a house, you get a free car. That's what they were doing. They were getting so creative to try and sell houses because these rates were so crazy. And now, 2.6, 2.2, that's fantasy land. If you don't take advantage of this right now, 6% is really a wonderful rate when we talk about historic long-term mortgage money. 6% is a good rate. 5% is unbelievable. And 4.32, we're really in fantasy land, in my opinion. Candy Cooke, you talk to a lot of realtors. You teach people how to become a real estate agent. what has the, Mark was talking a lot about the refis, and at those rates, we know he's going to stay busy, right? What about purchasing, listings and sales? And, what's did all of that come to a screeching halt because of COVID?
For about 2 days. Texas is crazy. Well, parts of Texas are absolutely crazy. And Austin somehow has attracted all kinds of high tech and commercials. So we've brought in Amazon, Oracle, Google, Tesla's now here. It's crazy what's going on. And we thought
I got to stop you for one second. I just spoke to someone this morning. I said, what was Tesla at when you were thinking about buying? Because did I say it's like $600 a share this morning, something like that?
Yeah.
I said, wasn't it like $44 when you talked about buying? She's like, yes, and everybody told me not to buy it.
Yeah. Well, what about Zoom? Zoom also.
Yeah. I know. Anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
So we slowed down for just a little bit, but our supply is so short in so many of the areas that things are selling. People are buying houses without even actually going into them. Something comes on the market, it's crazy. And my neighborhood is just off the charts, and I know it's driving the appraisers crazy.
Yeah.
But what I said, and I actually said it yesterday, was that the buyers are putting their money where their mouth is. They're bringing cash to the table. And then at what point does that establish market again? Which I've been doing this for 37 years. I'm sitting here battening down the hatches
and we'll talk about, we'll get into the weeds in this in just a minute, because we are seeing multiple offer scenarios. We're seeing, put your highest and best in, and then it goes over to the appraisal standpoint, and they're like, man, I can't support this stuff in some instances, not all. And I talked to one appraiser, and he said, well, what a lot of appraisers are missing is the time adjustment. You might need to be making a market conditions adjustment because things are selling at a different rate today than they were a year ago. And you're using a comp from a year ago, right? So probably there, in many instances, does need to have a market condition adjustment, right? So we'll get into that a little more in a minute. What's interesting to me is that so many sellers, I think, have taken the position of, well, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until this COVID stuff's over with. I don't want people coming into my house. I don't want to have to deal. I was really going to sell in the spring, and now, COVID has stuck around, and now here we are in December. Nobody wants to sell in December. So now I'll wait till next spring. And what's happened, I think, Candy, is what you were talking about, is we have such a scarcity of supply, right? And if we talk about the basic economics of supply and demand, we've still got people needing housing. They need to buy a house and move, but there's just very few options. Have you been seeing that, Mark? Have you been seeing bidding wars and where there's multiple offer scenarios in some of these sales that you finance?
Yes, we are seeing it more this year, I think, that I've seen in a number of years. But I think I spoke to a local realtor not long ago that it's slowed down some, maybe with the holidays on multiple offer situations. But yes, I mean, I'm telling my clients, be ready to make an offer, be ready to be on top of it. I've had a lot of people want to get pre-approved, maintaining their current house and trying to finance another house, because they're also worried that maybe their house might not sell that quickly. I'm seeing those happening still today.
Our problem is that they're afraid to put their house up, because if you sell it, can you get another house?
Where are you going to go?
Where are you going to go?
That's what I've told a lot of my clients, because I do real estate too. I'm an appraiser and I do that primarily, but I do real estate as well. And I've got somebody that's been pre-approved for, I think, $450,000. She didn't want to spend that much, but we can't find her a house. I mean, I've been showing her for months and we cannot find them a house. And she texted me one the other day because I look every day. And she said, this one looks like it meets all our needs, our wants, our needs. Can we get in today? Because she knew it'd go quick. And I tried to schedule the appointment and I got denied. And I'm like, why'd I get denied? And so I finally called the agent and they're like, it's gone. So I called my client and I said, that house is already gone. She's like, Bryan, it was listed 4 hours ago. What do you mean it's they won't let us show it? It's gone. Right. So it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild ride.
It is.
So Mark, your numbers, is it fair to say or easy to say your numbers are up right now? You guys have done more units this year than last?
Well, yes, definitely, because we're newer to the market, we definitely have. But our goal, we surpassed that. We had a realistic goal, maybe a little more. The market in our community. You kind of have to build your brand, build your reputation, and we've been doing that well, I think. But with the increase of refi boom and even the purchase boom, because that hadn't really slowed down either. We almost tripled what we expected. So,
wow. So, what's going to happen, Candy? When is this? We hear the term in the public and again, I just remind you guys and our viewers as well. We have a wide variety of audience. Okay. We've obviously got a bunch of appraisers. This is being brought to you by Appraiser eLearning, but we have a big audience of real estate agents. We have lenders, we have AMCs, we have state regulatory agencies. We have a lot of people in the States. Actually, we have people out of the country that watch this program. I had someone say hi from Africa the other day, which was very cool, right? I had a senator in class one time. So, we've got a wide variety of software providers, goes on and on and on. So everyone watching, whether they're in the industry or not, Candy, has heard the term, it's a seller's market or it's a buyer's market. So I think it's safe to say right now, because of scarcity, we talk about supply and demand. I think it's safe to say we've been in a seller's market for a while now.
Years.
So, yeah. So are we gonna stay there a while? Are we gonna kind of start to get into balance? Or is it going to shift to a buyer's market? I mean, what's your thoughts as the vaccines start getting distributed? People, I mean, eventually, I pray to God, eventually people are going to start feeling more comfortable. I mean, hopefully we're going to lose the mask. They'll probably be around forever.
I think so.
To some degree, but hopefully, enough folks are vaccinated and they feel better about it. When is this thing going to shift? I mean, is 2021 the year, or are we on down the road?
I was thinking, I have my fingers in a lot of different pots and I'm listening to stuff. I was thinking we'd see some of the shift this year because we're getting to the point where, is it affordable? Can people buy houses anymore? And at some point they go so high because everything's been going up, then everybody has to pull back. But as long as they keep those interest rates down, but evictions and forbearance are two things that are hovering in the sideshow, out away from everybody. What's this going to do to us? We've been, I teach in several different states, and I teach and I speak nationally. The thing is we're all kind of holding our breath, but we thought in March, and I'm going to say, you've spoken on my classes. We thought that this was a short-term thing.
Yeah. And
it's not. And I don't think we're ever going back to where we were. And I think that people are doing business differently. We're reaching out to people differently. I think people have realized their houses aren't perfect for them anymore. Okay. And I'm going to name two things. Number one, we need not an open floor plan. We need cut up houses so that you have a place to be able to be on Zoom.
I need an office. I need to paint this wall green. So I got a permanent green screen, right?
Yeah. I mean, seriously. Yeah. And then our other thing is we used to look at swimming pools and outdoor living areas as and the houses with those items now are skyrocketing. Okay.
A lot of people are putting pools in. My good friend Josh Emmons putting a pool in right now. Right?
Or they're buying houses that already have a pool or whatever. Yeah. So when you ask me, hang on, I got it. If you ask me to look at my crystal ball, okay.
How can I get one of those, Mark? Do you want
one? Yeah, I actually have two. If I get your address, I'll send you one of mine.
Okay. I want I just make sure it works, okay? Just make sure it works.
Yeah. Well, I've had the best year I've ever had, so I think it's working. The thing is that I think we're all in a period where nothing is sure. Nothing, you asked me, are we going to go to a buyer's market? And I'm going to say something and I'm going to show that I'm old. But I can remember in 1985 of one day, the guy I was working for was doing wonderfully and the market shifted in about 48 hours and the banks shut down and we crashed into the worst world I'd ever been in. Yeah. And, right now we're okay and everybody's behaving, but God forbid if anything comes in, if we throw those forbearances under the bus, if we start evicting people, and then what about the landlords who can't collect rent? I mean, we're into all kinds of chaos. So I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be figured out, and things can change this quickly. I mean, look at the pandemic. We went from living our lives to not being able to get a haircut or go eat when we want to go eat. Right? We've been locked down, for crying out loud. But I use 9/11 as a good example of that. When those planes went into those buildings and they came tumbling down. I talk about that and I say, what do you think happened to lease space in that area? All those businesses were displaced. And most of my students say what I used to think too is, oh, well, rents went up for office space because now you have a scarcity. They have to be placed somewhere. And I said, I thought that too, but the market said, no. People were walking out of 30-year leases. Why? Because nobody wanted to work in those tall, high buildings anymore. They were scared. So just because you predict something's going to happen, you may not have accounted that fear factor. And that's one of the four things that create value, right? Scarcity, utility, desire, and purchasing power. The desirability sunk because everybody was afraid to work on the 70th floor, right? Mm-hmm. So, Mark, what are your thoughts as far as we're going to take a break in just a second. We do have questions coming in. We want those questions to continue to come in, and we're gonna get to you in a minute, I promise. Mark, what's your prediction on these rates? We talked about a moment ago, these insane rates, and they're crazy. And I want 2.2, by the way. but what are your thoughts? You think we're safe as far as these rates staying about where they're at for a while, or one of these days they're gonna go back up? I mean, there's no question that's gonna happen at some point. You think we're safe for a while?
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't really give But I do think that we are going to stay this course. Now, of course, I can't tell you the longevity of that course, but I can tell you we will be seeing these staying pretty steady. We do have, not to talk about politics, but we do have some things changing here in the next month. I don't know what that administration, what other things can influence where the rates will go. But I think on the short term, and when I say short term, I think 2021, I don't see any drastic changes. could we tick back up a touch, from that 2.2 to that 2.5 for a 15-year? Still a heck of a rate, 2.5 for 15 years. So, but I don't see any drastic changes.
Another one of those
all that I don't have. So, but I do think, we're gonna stay the course that we're currently in. Is my perspective.
Yeah. So you guys heard it right here. Mark Gentry said, get ready. You're all going to keep saying very busy for 2021. I think he's right. I don't think you need a crystal ball for that right now. Yeah. I think now we're going to get into some of this stuff a little bit later in the broadcast, at least touch on it. And so the way we all do business may radically change. And it has this year. They went with some adjusted scope of work where appraisers didn't have to go in the houses in many instances. You could call and interview the owner. There's been applications that came out. Jeff Bradford's got a nice one where, you send a little app to the a link to the property owner. Says, hey, Mark, I've been asked to appraise your house and I'm not coming in, so you don't have to worry about that. But I'm going to send you a little link and it's going to allow you as the property owner to fill in the blanks and actually take pictures of your rooms and upload it back, and I'll get that information. And it'll help me do a better job. Better data creates better results, in my opinion, right? So, guys, we're at the halfway mark. Let me say something real quick, and then I've got some more questions, and we're going to get to some of these questions. Candy, I've got one coming up. I want some of your opinion to help Danielle in just a second. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the halfway mark. Unbelievable already. This stuff flies by. You're watching the Appraisal Report webinar by Appraiser eLearning. We're glad you're here. If you would like to be a guest on an upcoming program, or you know of someone that you think would make a good guest, please reach out to Ben Maxwell. And Ben, maybe you can put this in the chat box that they can see a contact for you. Please reach out to Ben Maxwell and let him know. We'd be happy to put you on the program. These sessions are being recorded via YouTube. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you'll continue to be in the know. We have a free webinar once a month. It's normally the fourth Thursday of every month. We have to massage those dates a little bit for November, December because of the holidays. This is obviously not the fourth Thursday of this month. We have the special edition webinars, and those can happen at any time. And I think we're going to have one next week. So let's get back at it. Danielle has asked a question, Candy, and let me just read it. Danielle says, I've started showing my buyers new builds, and even new builders now have a waiting list. We're 8 months out on average start to complete. That wasn't her original question, right? Danielle, you're killing me. So this was her question I want to get at. Having the same issue as a buyer specialist. So Danielle, someone that works primarily with buyers. I've got 8 buyers. Congratulations, Danielle. I've got 8 buyers, but I have no houses. So I'm going to tell you what I would suggest real quick, and then we'll let the expert Candy give you some advice. Danielle, I think I would go back and have another meeting with my client. I think I would sit down and say, look, we've already discussed what your needs are. And once we meet your needs, now we discuss what your wants are, right? And I'm trying to be the perfect agent. I have a fiduciary responsibility. I'm trying to meet your wants and needs. However, it doesn't exist. So here's your options. If you come up with a little bit more money, we can get you whatever you want, right? But if that's not an issue, then we need to have a serious conversation about massaging those wants and needs, right? Or maybe we need to talk about hitting the pause button and revisiting this later. And I know that's probably not what you want to do, right? You want to get that commission. And I certainly understand that. Let's go to the expert, Candy. Give her some words of wisdom there.
So you touched on something and I've been looking at it and watching. Everybody is anxious. Everybody's fighting this. And so we have these buyers that go in and they're putting in offers, contracts and in doing all of this thing. And I understand having the eight buyers. One of the things that I think we've missed out on, and you guys are going to laugh at me, but I think that as agents, we are not educating our buyers enough about the appraisal process. And we need to come forward and talk to them, because used to be you'd go put in an offer. Hopefully the agents had done a good job on both sides and allow an offer go in and everything worked. Well, now market value, according to the appraisers, does not match up to emotional value that the clients are. I need a house to live in. I want to move. I want to do this. Want. And I think that as a buyer's agent, you need to have a really serious conversation and say, okay, you have X amount of dollars, and here's what this is, as high as we can go. And if you go higher and it doesn't appraise, I think you have to be real honest, and you have to have them have a good understanding of what we're going into, because there's a whole lot of buyer angst right now. You guys talk about the multiple offers. Highest one I've heard in the last couple of weeks is 72 offers on one house. The one in my neighborhood was overpriced by $40,000. I talked to the guy about it. He got 38 offers in 2 days, and not one of them was at list. Everything was above.
Wow.
So, when you ask that, you say, I got 8 buyers. You've got to have that conversation. And Brian, you said it, the pause button. I think the pause button has to happen.
Yeah. And that's hard to do. I mean, especially, Danielle wants to eat tonight, right? And so she's got 8 buyers. She wants to make it happen. And I can appreciate that.
Absolutely.
But I will tell you what, Danielle, you may establish a very, very good long-term relationship with that buyer when they see that, hey, I'm not just a paycheck to her. Danielle really cares about, what I'm going through, she's not just trying to push me into a house that I'm ultimately not going to be happy with just because there's a house and I need one. Right. So I think there's something to be said about that. Larissa just said, yes, please educate buyers and sellers about the appraisal process. Multiple offers does not necessarily indicate the value. And that's true. We may be talking about a sale price, but just because that's a sale price doesn't necessarily equate to value. Mark, have you guys been running into that some where, people are, I don't know if you two have ever been to an auction or the Owensboro Gala, however you want to say it, has a silent auction, then they have a live auction. And I was in an auction. I went to an auction before COVID, and I'm a gun guy. I like guns. And I was going to get a gun. Right. And I go to this auction and they had 3,000 guns there or whatever it was. And one guy walked by and he said, hey, did you see that one guy? I can't remember which one it was. And I said, yeah, I'm going to get it. And he just said, what? Brian hadn't even went up to, what do you mean you were going to get it? You don't. I said, no, I'm going to get it. It's a little SIG. That's what it was. A little SIG. And, he said, you don't know if you're going to, well, I got it, but I may have overpaid for it. Right. And sometimes you get in the heat of an auction. It's like, by God, I still got money and Mark's not getting it. I'm getting it. And, I was doing that at an event one time. They had a Henry rifle from Whitaker's, Mark. And I finally realized, and this was for charity. So when it's for charity, I don't mind if I overspend a little bit. It's going to a good cause. Yeah. Right. But I finally had to stop myself and I thought, I could buy 2 brand new guns for what I'm bidding on this thing. I got to stop. Right. So have you seen that, Mark, where people kind of get in the heat of the moment and they're like, by God, they want highest and best. And I'm just going for the moon here. And this is what I'm going to bid and I'm going to get it. And then it's just such a crazy price that it doesn't resemble value. I mean, that's the price, but it doesn't resemble value. Have you guys been running into that some?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're seeing that for sure. And actually I just had a conversation with a buyer yesterday who's looking at a house that's been on the market a little bit longer than the average has been. And she's over, I'm going to lowball because it's, been on the market, 50 days. And that's just kind of funny because I'm like, well, I haven't heard that in a while. You know, I mean, typically it's bring your best offer. Not seeing a lot of seller concessions. I mean, they're really coming in at the listing price for a strong offer. And I think the realtors in my community have been pretty good at setting up expectations for the buyers and hopefully the sellers. But I still, I don't put on the realtor hat because that's not what I do. But
Sure.
I do like to work with like Brian, for example, and others in our community that have good reputation. That's really out there, like you said, for like Danielle, really want to help and educate the person, and yet not only become your realtor, but to become a lifelong friend, or they're going to buy and sell again. Who are they going to think of?
Yeah.
So those are relationship. This is a relationship business. That's if you can't have a good relationship with your buyers, sellers, lending partners, appraisers, everybody that's involved, title agents. That's the community that we all kind of live together, and you've got to take care of each other. I mean,
Let me stick with you for a second, Mark, and talk about this. And we do have more questions coming in, Candy, so get ready. But Mark, I want to ask a question because I've personally had a couple of applicants or clients ask me this, and I know it's probably a big concern when Candy talks about some of the people that got laid off and the forbearances, or they not making payments because they can't, right? They're not working. Right. They can't make their rent payment, if you will. What's your financial institution or your mortgage company look at when we talk about a client? Maybe they've worked a job 3 years and they've been laid off all this time, or you've got somebody in the restaurant industry. One of my people here works part-time at one of the restaurants, and we just went through a shutdown here in Owensboro. The whole Commonwealth of Kentucky was shut down.
Yes.
And I don't know what 3 or 4 weeks again, Mark, or something like that. And
so, 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. But I mean, of course, we went through this unprecedented times, obviously. But I mean, we went through something back in late March, April, May, with factories shut down if they were non-essential, right? And so we had people that were making hourly wages that we had to go back to the drawing board and check with Fannie, Freddie, FHA, whoever. To make sure we're underwriting these properly, because we want to make sure that, we don't know when we're going to shut down again. But we also have to make sure we are underwriting these files to meet whatever guidelines. And so they've had to change, they've had to update, they've had to kind of fill us in. I mean, forbearance, as Candy has mentioned, has been a word that hasn't been used in this industry in quite some time. At this point, we don't see many of those, knock on wood. And I don't know about other communities in the U.S., but I mean, obviously there's probably those that have probably been hit hardest that have taken advantage of that. And I don't blame them if that's what they need. But if you go through a forbearance, I mean, it's tough to kind of, especially now rates to refi, they want you to be current to refi. But if you took a forbearance, because let's be honest, if you needed to, and now you got to come back and get current on your mortgage so we can now start to look to refinance and take advantage of these rates, right? So then, but if their income didn't really change, or they didn't get another stimulus check, for example, or if they didn't get a bonus, how are they going to catch up on those mortgage payments? It's definitely been a different time on the lending side and trying to keep up with the changes. I mean, even not only do you have Fannie, Freddie, FHA, USDA, VA making any changes or any updates, but then you have your own individual lending companies. We shut down a couple of programs early on. Everything's pretty much back open now, but because of the maybe the different risks, we could go up to a higher debt ratio, but we went ahead and lowered that down to be on the safe side. You saw a lot of companies making those changes, and it's just one of those things you just had to learn and adapt. And somebody you had pre-approved in January may not have been pre-approved in March because
right. Mark, I want to stay with you a couple of minutes, and I'm going to focus on several of these questions, and some of them aren't questions or comments, but and Candy, I'm coming at you too. I'm coming at you both as a real estate agent and an appraiser, because I've got a couple of these that I want to speak on. And guys, I just tell you, as the viewer of this program right now, a hard question's okay. And it's okay to have differences of opinion.
Absolutely.
What I want to be is respectful and professional and kind, and we can agree to disagree. I'm not going to call you stupid. Don't call me stupid. Okay. So we can, there's nothing wrong with us having a difference of opinion. That lends for an engaging conversation, right? And so I welcome those hard, difficult questions. I'm not going to answer any of them. I'm kidding. All right.
You don't push them to us.
That's why I have guests. That's exactly right. So I got a couple of questions here. Naselli, and I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but I tried. I thought comps are back about 6 months, and now lots of sellers are putting a waiver if the appraisal doesn't work. So, Mark, I'm directing that to you. First of all, I don't know if your organization allows appraisal waivers or not. And I've been under the impression that in order to do an appraisal waiver, you had to meet certain criteria and, the certain loan to value and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Is it possible that somebody gets an appraisal, they don't like the results, and then they say, oh, okay, Mark, now I want to do the appraisal waiver? I mean, could you even do that?
No, I've not seen it. Now, I mean, yeah. So appraisal waiver, our company does appraisal waivers. So when we run through the automatic underwriting system that Fannie Mae provides or Freddie Mac provides, which is DULP, for those that are familiar with those terms, we do honor appraisal waivers. Now, I know there are companies in my community that do not. So, that does kind of set us apart for those. And you don't see them. We see them obviously more in refinances than we do sometimes purchases, but you do get appraisal waivers in purchases if it's the right LTV, maybe the right compensating factors is what I like to say. It's almost got to look like I don't want to say a perfect file, but it's got to look pretty.
Sure.
But we don't. I've not seen it in our community, Brian, where they sign any type of waiver if they don't like the appraisal. If that happens in other communities, other companies nationwide, I'm not totally aware of.
I don't. Necessarily, I don't see that happening. Here, let me tell you two things here. One, as an appraiser, and all the appraisers watching right now are going, no appraisal waiver. And I get it. I am an appraiser. I totally get it. And we're going to talk about it a little bit if we have time. We're running out of time, by the way. But I bought a condo in Nashville, and the lady I'm dating is a nurse practitioner. I mean, she's like a doctor, right? And she looks better than I do, both on paper and in person. But my point is this: on paper, she looks really good, right? And I look, okay. The person said, you can buy it without her. She can buy it without you. Put it together. Y'all buy whatever you want. And I said, oh, please, please don't tell her that. But we look really good, right, Mark? We were putting down a big down payment. Did we need an appraisal? Because they came back and they said, we may get an appraisal, we may do a drive-by, we may do a desktop, or we may not even do an appraisal. Now, I'm a consumer buying this property. It was the last condo in a new build. We tried to buy another one, couldn't get it. I offered full price, right? Mm-hmm. And putting down a big down payment. Did I? Now, again, guys, I'm an appraiser. And it pains me to say this, but as a consumer, did I care about getting an appraisal on that? To this day, and nobody's going to believe this, but I promise you, to this day, I haven't even looked at that appraisal report. Guess what it appraised for? The purchase price. I spent whatever it was. I didn't need it, didn't want it, didn't care about it. I was still going to buy that no matter what the appraiser said, right? So as a consumer, and think if your grandparents had a house that on a bad day is worth $100,000, they go to see Mark and say, we'd like to get a $20,000 loan. Do you need an appraisal on that? You really want your grandparents to bear that expense when the house is worth well over $100,000 and they're only borrowing $20,000? Now that pains me to say that as an appraiser, guys, but I think that we need to keep an open mind and say, well, there are some scenarios where you talk about safe and sound banking practices. What is the risk associated with that loan? Really not that much. So one last thing on that, Mark, how how many of those? I mean, do you do a bunch of those, or is it a small percentage, a large?
I mean, it's hard to maybe put an exact percentage on there, but I would say that, refinances, we're probably seeing 40-45%.
Really? Okay.
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 I mean, and that might be a little high on that, but you're seeing more now. When you think of refinances, somebody that's been in the home 5, 10, 15 years, they built up that equity. That's, they're under LTV, 50 LTV. I mean, it's a no brainer, is what the market is saying. But as for purchases, it's a small number that we see. And maybe it's because I'm in a smaller community with maybe not as much data as maybe the Austin area, for example. Probably turning more homes, obviously, there than we are in Owensboro, Kentucky, on a daily basis.
And Nacelli, I wouldn't think that, you get an appraisal and you don't like the results, right? Which, the property owner, let's face it, it's probably a little biased, right? And they're like, okay, now I want to do the waiver. I mean, that's like one time I got a request to do an appraisal. I did it and went inside the house. In my professional independent opinion, it was below average. The client called me a week later, Candy Mark. The client called me a week later. Wasn't Mark. About a week later, and they said, hey, Brian, we want to order another appraisal. We know it's a new assignment. We know it's a new fee. This time we want you to just do a drive-by and assume it's an average condition. I'm like, I can't do that. I know it's not an average condition. Don't, that's a little thing called mortgage fraud. Okay. I can't do that. Candy, I didn't mean to keep putting you off. What do you want to say?
No. What I was going to tell you is when they say appraisal waiver, Nacelli may be saying, I'm seeing it all the time, is that we don't care what it appraises for. The buyer's going to bring the money to the table. So the seller's saying, we don't care. You're going to buy this no matter what. Unfortunately, we're seeing that, and it just pains me. But hey, Brian, do you think, and this is way, just brainstorming, we need to do more of these combinations of the three of us, or having three people, because we have agents who don't understand what the lender does and what the appraiser does. We have appraisers who don't understand what the realtor does and the mortgage person does. I think we've lost sight of the fact, there's 1.4 million realtors in the United States. I mean,
Well, Candy, you hit the nail on the head there. I've offered to brokers here in Owensboro, and I don't know that I'm the biggest mortgage expert in Owensboro, because I know there's people in this industry who've been doing it longer. But when new realtors come on board, let me sit down with them. If they don't send me business, that's okay. But you know what? They need to understand the process, because they're not getting educated, in my opinion, on some of the things that I feel like are vital information for them to do their job. And,
Candy, Mark and I have been talking about getting together and talking, with his people initially about some FHA protocol, right? FHA requirements, if you will.
Right.
And talked about maybe doing that. So I agree. And it's funny you say that, because first of all, we're almost out of time. And I was about to say, I'm going to keep you guys hostage for an extra 10 minutes. I know you're busy people, but if I keep you for an extra 10 minutes or so,
you've got me.
But then I was going to say, we need to continue this conversation another time, because we got lots to talk about, and we just don't have the time to cover everything today. Let's try and do this. Let's spend another 5 minutes trying to get through as many of these questions and comments as we can. And then I want to at least talk about a snippet of this FHFA document that just came out 2 days ago. Mark, a real easy one, hopefully, for you here. Steve, and I know Steve, hi Steve, ask a question. From a lender's perspective, what does Mark consider to be a good appraisal?
It's the value we need, right? No.
I knew that was coming.
Yeah. And as is, but no, I mean, obviously the one thing that we do see is, obviously we wanted to hit the purchase price. If it's above it, that's great. If it's below it, then obviously the realtor and us and all have to kind of get together and figure out what the next step's going to be. But that's a pretty easy question to some degree. But I mean, I know the way the housing boom has been on the purchase side, and even the refis when appraisals have been needed, our turn times has been, somewhat of a concern because everybody wants it done like that, right? And locks are only good for so long, and so we know that has been a concern on the lending side with some of our peers. It's just trying to get them in, but I mean, obviously, you guys as the appraisers have been non-stop busy, just like we have been. But it's not like you just go out there and drive by and then you text me how much the value is and it's good. You got a lot of behind the scenes work that people don't realize. But I mean, simply to answer your question, is just getting a full report, accurate report. Obviously, what the value is closer to the purchase price, makes it easier for everybody, give or take, 1,000 here, 1,000 there, right? But and then of course, just hoping that, fingers crossed, we don't have to go out for final inspections, that, it's not the appraiser's fault if there is, because obviously if it's as simple as paint scrapes for an FHA mortgage, it's FHA, guidelines that has to be met. It's not Ruoff Mortgage. It's not Mark Gentry's. It's, it's making sure we are doing the things that have been set forth by the FHA guidelines. So
let's expand on that just a second, Mark, and talk about that. I mean, obviously the real estate agent, I say realtor, not all real estate agents are realtors, right?
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Get that cleared. But because Becky Jones is yelling at me if she's on here watching, quit saying realtor. So real estate agent, obviously the agent, the lender, probably the buyer, there creates an issue if it's not supporting the sale price. Now, we as appraisers know this. Our job is not to support a sale price. Our job is to develop an opinion of value, and whatever it is what it is, right? So let's expand on that just a minute, Mark. Let's say that you do, and if the agents, and I think this is where what Candy was talking about, a good conversation of trying to get everyone to know what their function and role is probably a really good conversation we ought to have again, right? Because a lot of agents don't know that. But what do you do, Mark? Let's say that you do have one and I appraise it for 100 and the purchase price is 105, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe the buyer, maybe the realtor has come back and asked for a reconsideration of value. And sometimes maybe you send some sales and I say, oh, how in the world I missed those? Oh my gosh. Right. Or what if I say, well, I used 2 of the sales you sent me for reconsideration and the other 2 aren't comparable. I'm not going to use them. I'm at 100. Sorry, but I'm doing my job. It's 100. Right. And so now the ball's back in your court as the lender and the real estate agent and all that, the buyer, et cetera. What do you do? I mean, what I know the deal could fall apart, but maybe it won't fall apart. What typically happens in that scenario?
I mean, simply, I just, obviously get the report, I might cuss a little bit and I'll just kidding. But I'll get the report. And then of course, I touch base with the realtor and, I evaluate it and touch base with them and kind of let them know where we're at. If we need to reconsider comps, like you had mentioned, we will do that. Or we will simply, let them kind of either try to renegotiate, or I don't see a whole lot of, people bringing in our community, if it does an appraise, okay, now you got to bring 5,000 cash because if it's a price range in the 100, 105, most of the time we're already doing an FHA first time home buyer or maybe something with down payment assistance. So these people some of the clients don't have the excess funds to do that. So, and then of course, I think as long as real estate agents are aware and educating them, especially the seller, this is an independent opinion based off comps and, you can put it back on the market another 30, 60 days and try it again. And what if you get 100,000 appraisal again? I mean, so
right.
As long as, like Candy says, they're educated and they understand the process, they can, turn around and start talking to their clients about making those changes and lowering the price. I mean, that's simply the easiest way to go. But I understand a seller's perspective is money. I want to much as out of it.
I totally get it. Okay, Candy, let me bring you in on this because we've we've got some comments. I'm going to read several, and then I want you to talk. Because I'll tell you, when you put yourself in someone else's shoes, you really start to see it from their perspective. I've been an appraiser for a long time.
Yeah.
I've been a real estate agent for a little over 3 years, right? So when I started selling real estate, I can kind of see, I can see why they're frustrated with an appraiser sometimes. But that doesn't change our role and our job function, right? So let me read a couple of these things, and then I want you to answer first from a real estate agent perspective, and then from an appraiser's perspective, if you don't mind. So Deborah says, most agents don't understand the appraisal process themselves. I think we probably would all agree with that. Thank you, Deborah. Tracy says, appraisers who can't hit value are going to run the market. Okay, we'll get back to you, Tracy. Michael says, when you have 34 offers well over asking, isn't that in fact a market that's been created, all acting in the same manner? And then Valentine said, I once had a buyer call me and tell me that I ruined her life because my value was less than the contract price. Then she proceeded to start crying. Ugh. Now, Valentine, I just want to say, why didn't I get that one? Because I'd much rather have her than the guy who said, I'm going to sue you, because that's the guy that calls me when it didn't appraise for what he thought it should be worth, right? So I'm going to let Candy address some of these, and then I may have to chime in as well. So Candy,
okay. So there's all kinds of things going on there. One of the biggest things, and I'm going to turn around and go back to the code of ethics from the realtors. And I'm going to say right now that appraisers, many of our appraisers are also realtors. Okay. I want you guys to hear me say that. Realtor does not mean agent broker. It means professional. We're required to be competent. That's Article 11 of the Code of Ethics. We need to know each other's jobs. And so going into this, we need to understand everybody's position. And when I hear they were crying, or I'm going to sue you, or I'm going to do that, that tells me we have an agent who has not put their client's interests ahead of their own and made sure that they understand what's happening in this whole transaction. The thing is then Mike, I think it was Michael said the 34 offers. So on the agent side, we need to be competent. On the appraiser side, we need to be competent. I hear appraisers say, oh, these stupid realtors are just working for their commission and they don't understand what we're doing. Well, I just had this argument over the weekend in social media, and I said, if the buyers are putting their money where their mouth is, and we're buying these houses, and they are overpriced from what you thought, but they're all putting the money in there, at what point does that turn into market value? But it takes all of the people on both sides to understand that we all have different jobs. Mark has a job, Brian has a job, Candy has a job. We're all trying to make this and put these pieces together. And somehow the agents think that the appraisers are screwing up the deals because they're not coming in at value. Okay. And the appraisers think that the agents are just going after the commission. And I mean, this whole circle goes round and round. Mark wants to make sure that if the buyer defaults, that he can get the money back. Hello. Why would we want, okay, so, hey, Mark, will you lend me $20? I'll pay you back 18 on Tuesday. That okay? We all have to figure out that everybody has a job and they have people that they're supposed to be protecting. And we got to quit doing this. We've got to start talking again. Because, we have the people who say we got 34 offers. Well, if nobody will put their money where their mouth is, then those offers mean nothing. But if there are people who are going to bring that money to the table, I think we got market value. But
yeah, so a couple of other comments here, and then I'm going to chime in. But let me read these first. Kathy says, if the agents had done their job up front, oftentimes they already know it's not going to appraise. They're scratching at straws from the beginning. Ledbetter says, how can realtors/agents be considered competent when there is 0 hours of regulated education that they must take on how to price real estate? So couple of things here. I've had agents over the years call me and be mad at me and say, you cost me a deal. Or one of the comments said, if appraisers don't hit the number. Well, it's important for everyone to know an appraiser's job is not to hit a number.
no.
Guys, if we were just there to say, Mark, the sale price of 120 is good, and we did that consistently on every deal, then Mark doesn't need us, right? Let's just get rid of appraisers altogether, and Mark can finance everything based on a sale price. And appraisers, you need to be careful, because if you're doing that, you may just be out of a job soon. If you're going to always appraise it for the sale price or higher, we aren't needed.
No.
Okay. So be careful with that. Real estate agents have a tough job. One of my very first deals was all cash, and 2 days before closing, it fell apart. That was a $10,000 commission for me that went away. Now, thank God I do other things and I was able to eat at night, right? But if that was my sole income, that would have been devastating. I mean, it was devastating, but it would have been really devastating if that was it. So what I was going to say a moment ago, when I sometimes over my career had an agent call and say, you required all these repairs on this FHA, and now my deals. So this is what I think we can educate, or try to help educate Mark and Candy and I and others. Listen, FHA is pretty clear. These are their requirements, right? So if you've got a buyer and Mark says, hey, I've got to take this buyer FHA, it's the way they qualify, right? You're an agent, you show them this house, and you see, if you educate yourself as the agent and you identify all of these issues that are going to be repair issues, the buyer doesn't have the money to do it. The seller's already said they're not going to do it. Why would you even write a contract? You're putting together a contract that is going to fail. And then when it does fail, instead of accepting responsibility, you blame the appraiser, right? Now, we all have a job to do, and we've got to figure out how we can all do it and get along and survive this crazy thing that we do together, right? But I do think educating ourselves and others is a way that we can maybe minimize some of these problems, right? So, Candy, what's your biggest thing in your group? And I know you have appraisers and real estate agents, and a whole host of folks. And so tell everybody, because we're winding this down, tell everybody the name of your group and how they can get, in your group if they want to. And then tell us, what is the biggest argument or discussion, or what's the one that gets the biggest? Is it value? Is that the number one?
No, right now. Okay. Oh, so it's Cooke Real Estate, and it's COOKE' Real Estate. Anybody's welcome to join. A bunch of you guys have. The biggest thing is the getting appraisal orders. They think appraisers are being ugly because they're not taking orders. And it's gotten real ugly. People wanting rushes. I don't think people understand the appraisal part of the whole transaction right now. Since we've gotten so busy, there's not enough of us out there doing the work. But the other thing is that education and misunderstanding what everybody's role is. And I'm going to tell you right now, I've got classes. I throw classes out there all the time. If you're out of state, you're not going to get CE, but you're welcome to register for my classes. I do them. I throw them on all the time. Come see.
Let's talk about this real quick because I said we were going to, and then we're done, folks. So we're sorry if we didn't get to your questions. I will have these two folks on again on a future program if they're interested, and we'll continue the conversation. But let's talk about this just for a second, okay? And I don't know, Benjamin, if you can put a link on this somehow. It is FHFA. Which again is the agency, the federal agency that is kind of over Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac right now, right? Because they're still under governmental watch, if you will. And they put out this just December 28th. So this is hot off the press, right? I've got a podcast coming out on this. Ben, is that going to hit today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning, I have a podcast coming out on this. The podcast that we do is called the Appraisal Update. And those typically go out once a week. You can find those on anywhere you listen to podcasts, whether it be Apple or Stitcher or iTunes or, Spotify or wherever you listen to an a podcast, you can find that. It's called the Appraisal Update Podcast. And so that'll be out tomorrow. You can also go to appraisereLearning.com and find those. And I'll just give a real quick overview on this. And we don't have time to even really scratch much of the surface on it, but I am going to talk about one thing. This talks about appraisal waivers. It talks about a new appraisal form. It talks about potential problems in ethnic neighborhoods. It talks about hybrids. And that's what I wanted to ask you two guys about real quick. A hybrid appraisal is a bifurcated appraisal, but a bifurcated appraisal is not always a hybrid appraisal. Woo. So a bifurcated appraisal is, let's say that Candy and I worked on something together. Mark's got a big complex property and he hires me and I bring Candy in to collaborate and she and I both work on it together. And then we get it finished and we deliver it to Mark. That's bifurcated.
But it's not
because she did part and I did part, right? It just so happens that we're both certified general appraisers. Okay. A hybrid is where a non-appraiser would go out and do the inspection. So Mark, this would be where maybe a real estate agent or an insurance agent would go out to the subject property, gather characteristics about it, send it to you, and maybe just on that data, you can make the loan. But if you feel that you need more data, then it gets sent over to a certified appraiser, and the appraiser is basically doing a desktop appraisal utilizing the information that the property data collector obtained, okay, as far as the characteristics of the property. What are your thoughts on this, guys? Is this something, Candy? I know most of appraisers in the country despise the thought of this. What are you hearing? What do you know? What are your thoughts, Candy?
I'm really nervous about the hybrids. If I felt like the person going out and doing the inspection was competent, then I'd be okay with it.
Yeah, we don't. That's the problem. We don't have any, and you're wanting me to rely on them. And maybe it's okay, but maybe it's not. One thing that I say is, why don't they let the trainees go out?
Right.
And do this. Let me train them. If the lenders would come off of that, and I think Ruoff does, because my trainee, I don't know if you'll let her go out by herself. We haven't tried that one yet, but I know Ruoff lets my trainee sign on the left, I sign on the right, mm-hmm. And I think US Bank does, and there's a handful that do, but man, there's a lot that will not. We just submitted a report 2 days ago, and they came back and said trainees are not allowed to sign take that, so I go out with her on everything she does, but she's to the point now where I don't need to. I mean, I'm not going to send her out to a 12,000 square foot home, but I could send her to a 1,200 square foot home over in Gardenside or Thoroughbred Acres or something like that. So Mark, what are your thoughts on this hybrid? Because the conversation's coming back up again about maybe.
I'm I'm with Candy on it, really. I mean, even as a lender, I mean, will it mean that I get a report faster? I don't know, but I don't want to report faster if it's going to compromise, the integrity of the process. I mean,
Right.
I don't like it. It's not something that I recommend at all. So I prefer, now I agree with you, your trainee, I'd be okay with that. Somebody that's,
somebody who's got.
Yeah.
Someone that I've trained, she feels comfortable. I feel comfortable. We've met the AQB requirement. We've met the state's requirement. In Kentucky, by mandate, I've got to go with her on the first 50 assignments. Well, she's done more than that already. In Tennessee, it's the first 500 assignments, right? If these agencies would let us do that, I'd hire the maximum amount of trainees that I could have. And then your turn times, some of the areas you mentioned, Mark, we could do more. If you're going to make me go on every single one, well, Bryan can only go to there's so many hours in a day, but I can hire 3 in Kentucky. So I'd bring 3 on, and I could send one that way, and one that way, and one that way. Right. And I'm not saying just be a sweatshop. I'm saying once they're competent, right?
Right.
So I don't know. That's one of the things. And so what this is, all the viewers, the Federal Housing Finance Agency is asking for a request for information. You have till the end of February. They want to know what your thoughts are. So they'll each little section, they'll talk about the issue like hybrids. They'll talk about the perceived benefits. They'll talk about the risk associated with doing a hybrid. And then they want to know what you think. So here's your opportunity to get involved and maybe make a difference, right? You've got till the end of February to respond.
Hey, Bryan.
Yes,
Bryan,
ma'am.
there's one thing in there with that hybrid thing. I don't think that the people doing the inspections understand. Do they have liability? Just like the appraiser has liability. And that's something that's come up. I do this. This is not loser. This is lawsuit. You are you going to get yourself into trouble doing these? I don't think people understand.
Well, they didn't talk about that in this. And again, I've just started examining it because it's hot off the press. But one of the things they did talk about, Candy, is the risk associated with using someone that, doesn't do what we do, going out, trying to capture that physical characteristic. And they talk about that they're not, the property data collector is what I'm calling it.
Yeah.
They're not regulated by anyone. So from a regulatory standpoint, there's no repercussions for them. Now, lawsuit's a different story.
Yeah, lawsuit is a different story.
Guys, thank you very much for being here. I know it was short notice and I've held you over 15 minutes, so I apologize for that, but it's been a great conversation. We've had, 150, 160 live viewers during the broadcast. We had a lot of questions. If you guys ask a question, we didn't get to it, I apologize. Candy, if someone wants to reach out to you and get more information about you, your educational offerings, your group, how can someone reach out to Miss Candy Cooke?
Oh, please don't laugh at me. I have an AOL account.
I'm going to laugh at you for that.
Yes, you are. Until you hear it, it's only 3 letters. It's RPC, Real Property Counselors, RPC at AOL.com. So you can remember me.
Short. That is short.
Yeah. Make fun of me until you hear that.
And then one last time, as far as your Cooked group on Facebook, tell everybody how they can get into that.
All you could do is go to Facebook, look up COOKE''D real estate. And I'm the one who approves it. I've just approved a bunch of people, and I'm hoping Tracy M is the right one.
And you said you have 12,000 folks in that group. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Good for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I've got about 8,000 on LinkedIn, but I'm not even on your heels, right? Yeah. So, Mr. Mark Gentry, thank you very much for being here today, my friend. Tell everybody if someone wants to get in touch with you, how they can reach out and communicate with you.
No, I appreciate it, Bryan. I enjoyed it. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Mark Gentry. I'm in Owensboro, Kentucky. I'm on Facebook as well. Feel free. Any questions? Those are good venues to reach out to me. So,
Very good. Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching the Appraisal Report webinar brought to you by Appraiser eLearning. Thank you for being here. We hope to see you next month. Actually, we hope to see you next week when we dive into this topic. I'm going to have a lot of folks on, and we're going to really examine this. So please come back and join us next week. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not already. For Candy, Cooke, Mark Gentry, I'm Bryan Reynolds, your host. Thank you very much for watching, and be safe. Benjamin.
Okay, hang on. We're almost